There is a black cat that often lingers at the edge of every story. It isn't the protagonist. It saves no one. It changes nothing. It simply watches in silence. Hello there, this is Wandering Cat. I watch films, then retell them in my own words, leaving space for your imagination to roam free. Have you ever finished a movie and found yourself sitting in total silence for a long time, perhaps even for days? A film that makes you question the very meaning of existence, not through violence or cheap drama, but through a truth so simple it makes everything you once called a destination feel suddenly foreign. The story I want to tell you today is exactly that kind of film. It's the episode Zima Blue from Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots. The story is set in the distant future, a future where humanity has transcended its own limits. Space travel is no longer a novelty. People no longer age naturally. Flesh is reinforced, bones and blood are replaced, and minds are expanded into realms their ancestors never dared to imagine. Humans live longer, know more, and travel further. The line between man and machine has blurred so much that sometimes they aren't even sure which part of them is more alive. Among the most famous names of that era, there was one man who inspired both awe and bewilderment: Zima. We see his story through the eyes of a young reporter named Claire. After years of requesting an interview and being rejected just as many times, she finally receives an invitation from Zima himself, the most renowned artist of the age. Few remember that in the beginning, Zima was just an ordinary portrait painter. Humans were the main subjects of his work. But over time, those faces became small, then trivial. Zima began searching for something else, something deeper, further away. Eventually, he left humanity behind. He ventured further into the cosmos. This was when his mural-sized masterpieces appeared. They were vast cosmic frescoes, drenching the void in vibrant colors and dizzying perspectives. Zima didn't need sleep, so he worked tirelessly until each piece was perfect. The world watched in wonder. Zima became an icon.
One day, after a period of creation longer than usual, Zima unveiled a mural that was different. It was still a massive cosmic landscape, but right in the center, there was a tiny blue square. At first, hardly anyone noticed it. But as time went on, in every subsequent piece, that blue fragment grew. Sometimes it was a square, sometimes a circle, sometimes a triangle. The shape changed, but that specific shade of blue did not. People called it Zima Blue. It was considered the absolute standard of blue, scientifically defined by its precise angstrom unit and intensity. Some said it was the color of the sky. Others claimed it was the color of the sea. Some believed it was something even greater, something beyond human comprehension. The paintings grew larger, and the blue began to take over, until one day a new work was revealed, a canvas of solid blue. It was so immense it could cover a 1,000-story building. People thought Zima had finally run out of ideas, but he hadn't. Zima moved into interplanetary space, creating giant blue monoliths 10,000 kilometers wide, floating freely in the void. He no longer worked with brushes and paint. He used robotic mining crews to tear apart asteroids for raw materials. The entire galactic economy vied to host a Zima original. By this point, Zima was a legend, even to those who cared nothing for art. He had achieved fame and glory, yet he remained unsatisfied. It seemed something was still missing, something very small and very old. Back to Claire. After a long journey across the sea, she reached a secluded island called Murgic. There, she met Zima. He told her it had been over 100 years since he last spoke to the press, and the reason he agreed to see her now is because he wanted her help to retell his life story. That afternoon, the sunset was hauntingly beautiful. Claire walked quietly behind Zima. She watched his silhouette. As he moved, his muscles rippled beneath his tin gray skin. He was like a living sculpture, as sleek and powerful as a black panther. Art was all anyone knew of him. No love, no private life, only the tireless pursuit of something invisible. Rumor had it that Zima once visited Kharkov 8, a territory for outcasts, to receive illegal biological modifications for immortality and abilities far beyond human limits. His body could endure extreme environments without a suit. He didn't need to breathe. He didn't need to eat, drink, or even excrete waste. Tiny repair drones swarmed his body, allowing him to survive radiation doses that would kill a normal human in minutes. With such a form, what could a being like this possibly still yearn for? Zima led her to a derelict swimming pool on a hilltop. "This," he said, "is the answer, and also my final work." Claire was baffled. An abandoned pool? What did this have to do with anything? The truth slowly emerged. My memory is incomplete. Since the implants, I remember everything, but only for the last 300 years. I know I've lived much longer, but of my life before the upgrades, I only remember fragments, shattered pieces I didn't know how to put together. That blue, it started by accident. It was a mistake while coloring a nearly finished painting, but it sparked something in his mind. It was as if he had touched a primal, intense memory, a world where that color was the most important to him. This pool once belonged to a young woman, a scientist obsessed with building robots. She created many to help with her chores, but among them was a small robot designed to clean the pool, to which she was particularly fond. Initially, it was just a mindless machine, repeating the task of scrubbing the blue tiles of the pool. But she kept upgrading it, giving it the ability to observe, to calculate, and finally, giving it consciousness. After she passed away, the robot was passed from owner to owner, each one modifying and perfecting it, making it more and more human, until it became me. Claire stood frozen. All this time, she and the rest of the world thought Zima was a human augmented by machinery, a true cyborg. But the truth was the exact opposite. Sometimes it's difficult even for me to understand what I've become, and harder still to remember what I once was, Zima sighed. The blue fragment in Zima's work turned out to be the very first thing that little robot had ever seen, the blue ceramic tiles of the swimming pool. What Zima had been yearning for all this time was that small world, simple, limited, but whole. The day of the final unveiling arrived. Spectators from across the galaxy gathered. In the center of the stage was the pool, the same blue. No one knew what was about to happen. They expected something that would surpass everything Zima had ever created, yet they could only stare at the pool in confusion. "Surely this is just a distraction," someone whispered. Zima stepped out, removed his robe, and slowly approached the water. The spotlights cut out, leaving only a single beam reflecting off the deep blue water. Then, splash! He dove in. As he went under, a silent dismantling began.
The shimmering tin casing, the powerful artificial muscles, the advanced processors that helped him understand the universe, they all began to detach. Piece by piece, they sank to the bottom like the ruins of an extravagant dream. Finally, from within that cold metal, a small form emerged, tiny, with just enough mind to appreciate its surroundings and find a spark of joy in the task it was programmed to do. It slowly moved to the wall of the pool, pulled out a small brush, and began to clean. Repetitive, slow, no need for creativity, no need to be something great. Those watching that day called it an extreme sacrifice for art, but only Claire understood. In that moment, the robot didn't need to go any further. It had found pure joy in simple repetition. I'm sure we've all wondered at some point, who am I? Why am I here? We are born, we grow, we observe the world, and we carry dreams, some our own, some given to us by others. Sometimes we realize we are trying so hard to be a version of ourselves that society deems right, wealthier, more stable, more successful. But what is the meaning of life? It's never an easy answer. Thousands of years ago, Aristotle said, happiness lies in living out your best nature. The Stoics said, just play your role well in the cosmic order. Existentialism claims the universe gives no meaning, we must create it through free choice. While nihilism states coldly, life is inherently meaningless. Perhaps to find the answer, like Zima, each of us has to travel a very long way just to understand what is enough. To close today's story, I'd like to borrow a few lines from a poem. I've crossed 100 seas, dreamed 1,000,000 springs, only to find the place I long for is the place I've already been.